4 years ago, I was the kind of guy who said, I'll just do it tomorrow. I would start a diet, quit after 2 weeks, and then blame my genetics for it. I remember this one time, there was this really pretty girl in my class, and I wanted to talk to her so bad, but at that point in time, my confidence was just so low that I didn't even feel like I could approach her. She sat beside me in one of my business classes, and I remember making eye contact with her, and she seemed like a really nice girl. We even passed by each other in the hallways. I would say hi to her, and we had like a friendly relationship, but I just remember being too scared and not confident enough to actually go and talk to her. And looking back on it now, I think a lot of the reasons why I was having confidence issues is not because I necessarily disliked myself or anything like that, but I just didn't really trust myself. And maybe you're in a similar situation where you feel like you can't really trust yourself to follow through with the things that you actually say you're going to do. And trust me, I know how hard that feels, where you start something and as soon as it gets hard, you give up on it. And yes, you don't achieve your goals, and yes, you don't get the physique that you wanted, and yes, you feel upset about that. But I think the worst part of it is just feeling like you can't really trust yourself to actually follow through with the things that you say you're going to do. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can actually become unrecognizable and completely change your life as just an average guy. This video isn't meant for professional athletes. It's not meant for top 0.001% genetics. So matter of fact, if you're LeBron James, you might as well just click off this video right now. But if you're someone just like me, just a normal guy who wants to get into good shape, who wants to actually change their life, then hey, good news, you can do it. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing that, because for me, I remember thinking that getting into good shape, getting a good body, becoming attractive was just something that was reserved for the top 1% of guys who were just born that way. But the good news is that's actually not true. So I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do it too. All right, guys. Now, the first thing I want to talk about in today's video is habit building. So habit building is probably the most powerful tool when it comes to either living a great lifestyle or living a really low quality lifestyle. The fact of the matter is that all of our lifestyles are built around habits, and it's our choice as to whether we follow the good habits or follow the bad habits. And so for this part of the video, I actually want to read you a section out of my book called The Aesthetic Mindset. And this chapter is called Neuro Warfare. To understand motivation and reward, we must understand how the brain works in relation to dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical of motivation. When people think of dopamine, they think pleasure, but that's not exactly accurate. A more accurate way of thinking about it would be anticipation. Dopamine is the chemical released when you are about to do something pleasurable. Think staring at the microwave while the yummy food cooks. A very advantageous tool in nature for obvious reasons. But what happens when this neurochemical is now accessible through instant, low-effort inputs like phone notifications, social media scrolling, or junk food? A perfect storm of deeply reinforced dopamine-spiking activities that create unhealthy, addiction-based lifestyles. It is precisely these low-effort inputs that lead people into addictive patterns in their day-to-day life. Dopamine establishes powerful pathways in the brain that lead people to crave certain activities. Each scroll, snack, or notification reinforces this pathway. However, dopamine is finite, and there is an equal and opposite effect to dopamine spikes. This would be the dopamine crash that is all too common nowadays. It leads to feelings of emptiness and apathy, even after being ultra-stimulated. If you've ever scrolled on social media for hours, you understand this feeling. This is a good indicator one is in need of a reset. And so a really good way to understand habit building is through what's called the dopamine loop. And so the dopamine loop consists of four parts. There's the cue, or some people refer to it as the trigger. It's the thing, the initial thought that has you start thinking about doing a certain behavior. So you have the cue or the trigger, then the behavior, which would be the execution of that behavior. So let's say the trigger would be you see an Instagram reel for like some chocolate chip cookies. Then the behavior would be to go and get chocolate chip cookies. And then you get the reward, which is the satisfaction, which then leads to the last step, which is reinforcement. So then that therefore reinforces the behavior. Now, you can see why this is a very powerful tool, because whether you're doing the right thing, like going to work out, or doing the wrong thing, like eating a bunch of chocolate chip cookies, all of it gets reinforced and ingrained into your neural pathways. And that is ultimately what leads to something feeling familiar and comfortable. And ultimately, we know that most people tend to do the thing that is familiar and comfortable. So whether it's going to the gym and working out or eating a bunch of fast food, you choose to reinforce those patterns. All right, so now that we've talked about pattern reinforcement, I want to talk about some day-to-day things that you can actually start doing in your life to start reinforcing the healthy habits. So a great thing that you can do to completely reinvent yourself if you're just a normal guy is start weightlifting and going going to the gym in some capacity. The reality is, if you want to stand out, if you want to be a standout guy, you have to be willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do. And most people aren't willing to actually go and put in the work at the gym. Now, what I recommend is just 3 times a week for only about 45 minutes is all you really need to build muscle. So you don't need to be in there for like, 7 days a week for 3 hours a session. You only need to go about 2 or 3 times a week for 45 minutes. That'll be adequate. And then the next thing to do if you want to become unrecognizable is focus on body fat percentage. Studies have shown that only about 2% of men in America are 15% body fat, which is considered a very healthy range for men. Matter of fact, the average body fat percentage of the average American man is about 30%, which is considered obese. So one of the quickest ways to stand out is to become in a lean, healthy body fat range. Now, if you combine this with the weight training that we talked about earlier, you can guarantee that you're going to probably have about a top 1% physique. Now, how do you achieve a 15% body fat percentage? Well, the good news is that it's totally attainable. However, the caveat is that you are going to have to put in a little bit of effort, especially if you're somebody who is used to a pretty unhealthy diet. Now, if we're being honest, most people's diet looks like a lot of junk food, a lot of fast food, highly processed food, and ultra calorie dense, low nutrient food. So the easiest way to get a healthy body fat percentage is actually switch the quality of your diet to a clean, whole, animal-based, high protein, nutrient rich diet. This would include pretty much all the stuff that we all intuitively know is good for you. So like lean cuts of animal meat, fruit, vegetables, eggs. I personally just eat a lot of steak, chicken, ground beef, and a bunch of fruit, and I feel great. It's kept me at a very healthy body fat percentage. So I think when it comes to diet, a lot of people think of the stuff that they need to do, the stuff that they need to change. But honestly, the most important thing, a reframing of dieting, is not necessarily what you should do, but just abstaining from the things you know you shouldn't do. So yes, eat all the food that we already know is healthy for you, but the most important part is just avoid the junk food, avoid the highly processed food, and turn it from a regular thing into a every so often thing. Because realistically, at 15% body fat as a guy, I think you can totally still live a very balanced, normal lifestyle, but you just need to be able to prioritize healthy foods. Now, I know that this advice might have sounded pretty basic, but the truth is that becoming unrecognizable, changing yourself, and doing the things that will give you a top 1% body isn't a secret. And the truth is, you probably already knew all this stuff. What it really comes down to is actually just executing and actually doing it, because most people know how to get the physique, they just don't actually do it. So I hope this video is a call to action to you, to know that even if you are just a regular guy like myself, that you actually can make a change. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you are interested in getting a deeper dive on fitness, just like the step-by-step protocols to my diet, my workout routine, I'll have a link in the description to my program called The Aesthetic School. It's everything I know. I'll walk you step-by-step on exactly how to change your physique. So I'll leave that linked. But anyways, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.